You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Peach State Payments. Ethical processing, more profit, less stress. Chiro HD, more than an EHR. Projects management simplified. The Chiro Speaking Company. Attract, educate, and convert. Chiro Spring, cloud-based, user-friendly software with all the essential features chiropractors need. Rudman Relight. The IFCO. Chiro Moguls. Chiro Health USA. Sherman College of Chiropractic. Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, and Life West College of Chiropractic. Let's hustle. This episode of Chiro Hustle is brought to you by Relight Hydration by Redmond. Here's the truth. Most Americans are walking around dehydrated, low energy, brain fog, muscle cramps, headaches, and they think they need more caffeine, when what they actually need are electrolytes. Hydration isn't just water. It's sodium, potassium, and trace minerals that help your body actually absorb and use the water. That's where Relight comes in. Made with Redmond real salt. No artificial junk, no neon dyes, no sugar overload, just clean, balanced electrolytes designed to support hydration, muscle function, and optimal daily performance. And here's the best part. Grab their sample pack with multiple flavors so you can find your favorite. Once you dial it in, it's an easy daily habit you'll stick with for life. Chiropractors understand this. The nervous system runs on electrical signals. Electrolytes help support that communication. If you're tired or feeling drained by 2 p.m., this is your upgrade. Go to chirohustle.com and get 25% off Relight with our exclusive promo. If you want a wholesale Redmond products, see the show notes for the wholesale application. Hydrate smarter, perform better, stay aligned.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 774 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Heidi Hovick. And if you want to hear our conversation about subluxation and research, stay tuned for the full episode. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Today I have Dr. Heidi Hovick on with me. Hopefully I didn't botch it too bad there, but episode number, 774 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm really excited to have her on as a guest. This is a real special edition. As you guys know, I don't typically do Thursday productions, and we're bringing her on a Friday from over in New Zealand. So there's a lot to talk about today. I'm just going to pre-frame it from pain to brain to pain, bone and nerve subluxation. We're going to touch on some research that she's working on, and what happens to the brain when the patient is being adjusted. Plus, I want to pre-frame to let you all know that help with funding the New Zealand Research Center. That's a big time effort that we're going to talk about. And next Tuesday, she has a master class coming on about immunity in chiropractic. And I think all of you guys will want to jump on that. So she'll be sharing on that. And she has some online membership programs that I'll let her talk about. But we're going to get a little nerdy and talk about neuroscience. And she's got a huge research center going on over in New Zealand at the college there, which I believe is one of the epicenters of chiropractic in the world. But before we get into this episode, I do it all the time, Heidi. I let people know our big why. Why do we do what we do? First things first is freedom of speech. We believe that that's so important for the future of chiropractic and for today of chiropractic. We also would like you to share the show if you know a chiropractic student or a chiropractor that's not getting real deal philosophy in their life. Please share the show. When it comes to the other things that we really love to talk about is medical freedom and family health freedom. They're not the same things, but if you need help and guidance with these things, reach out to a chiropractor in your neck of the woods. Getting down to the brass tacks, philosophy matters. We do support BJ Palmer's Sacred Trust. If you don't know what that is, go to the show notes, check it out. I don't care if you've been practicing for 30 plus years. Go fall back in love with this beautiful profession of chiropractic and know why you do what you do. We support subluxation-based chiropractic, innate intelligence, universal intelligence, and the educated intelligence. And with that, this is episode number 774 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Dr. Heidi, welcome.
Thank you so much. I can't believe you've done over 700 podcasts. You're not even a chiropractor.
Yeah, I just I believe that the world needs, as we know, mainstream media, mainstream journalism is very much captured, and we need the potential of shows like this. Like I said, it's a cult classic, it's a dark horse thing that we do here, but it's really filling the gap for something that's very necessary. Is bringing on chiropractors and letting them talk about this beautiful profession. So I'm really excited to have you on today.
You know, you've seen it. You've worked with chiropractors, so you've seen it change lives. And I think that's the key thing, because my key number one, with me, working with me at the research center at the New Zealand College, is also not a chiropractor. He's a bioengineer, Imran Khan Niazi. But he's seen it actually in action. And he goes, what you do, it changes lives. He doesn't give a shit about the politics. He goes, like, this just needs to be studied and it needs to get out there. So I get it. I totally get it. It's just cool. I think it's cool.
Well, I can't do a show without actually asking you why you got into chiropractic. So what's the story behind you?
So, I mean, it's a bit of a weird one. There's a couple of versions. One version is that my great-grandfather was one of the first 1,000 chiropractors ever to graduate from Palmer College in 1924, and that's BJ's days. So in a way, I think I was destined to really become a chiropractor. I didn't really fully understand what chiropractic was, and I grew up in Norway, and I'd come out to New Zealand for a 6-month visit to, revisit my roots, and really loved New Zealand, and happened to find out about the college and applied and got in. So it was sort of a little bit of a coincidence, but maybe not so coincidental anyway, if you think about it. Because in the Norwegian world where I grew up, my dad's a medical doctor. Although my great-grandfather on his side started up this Norway's largest rehab center that when he started up, very alternative. Like they had to walk barefoot on the grass in the morning. They had exercise, they had massage, they had sunbathing, swimming, so it's grown into now one of Norway's largest medical rehabilitation centers. I still go over and give some talks now and then about why they should include chiropractic. But yeah, I honestly feel, James, that I was destined to do this, because I've got that scientific mind, but I've also got this chiropractic legacy, and I was just destined to do it.
When was your first adjustment?
When I was a kid, because Mum's family, her brother was a chiropractor, her grandfather was a chiropractor. So there's all these, the chiropractic has sort of obviously just come through, and even with my dad, who's the medical doctor, I came home, from a visit from New Zealand going, I'm going to become a chiropractor. And Dad, my medical doctor father, goes, oh, that's wonderful, Heidi. Chiropractors do a lot of good for many people. And so I had no idea, James, none idea about the controversy or anything like that, because the environment is a bit different in New Zealand. Like we're more of a family than fighting each other, which I think is really wonderful. So having that in my background, I knew nothing about any controversy. New Zealand being so, it's not like everybody agrees on everything, but it's more like a family that you can disagree in a meeting and then go to the pub afterwards. Like it's no big deal, right? And that's the environment. Plus another big strength we've always had is the philosophy, the science, and the art technique has always been equally valued, and none of them have ever been viewed as more important or above the others. And that's, I think, the way it should be, because I'm never as arrogant as to think that the research we're doing is the only truth, because you observe so much more, like you've experienced yourself. What you observe in practice, whether you're doing the adjustments or not, you're seeing it changing lives. So that's got to mean something, just as important as the science that I'm doing. And then we have to have the theories. And funnily enough, many of these old theories from Didi and BJ's days, I'm really proving them right, if anything.
Well, I love how we started this out. And I know that we set some ground for the conversation today and how we'd like to take it. We do have some really fun stuff we're going to talk about today. But I know that there's a lot of students that watch our show too. What maybe is some advice that you give to a chiropractic student based on where you are right now in your career?
I think one of the most important things is that you've got to understand that you bring something very, very unique within you. And it's something like the bigness of the fellow within, written by, the Palmers back in the day. But how that plays out is when you've got to go through the learning process, and that does take time. I remember I thought my tutors were lying to me when they were saying they could feel this, that, and the other thing, and I couldn't feel shit. But give it a few more years, and all of a sudden I could feel so much that I could almost I don't even need to necessarily put my hands on a patient and I can feel what's going on for them. So I'd say trust in the process, and that with time, your hands and skills and tuning in gets a lot stronger. But never forget that you bring something unique within yourself. And I think that's where the beauty lies, when we let our own inner genius shine and we work collaboratively together. And that's another thing James and I were talking about before we even started, that if you work to your strengths and you trust each other in a good group, and you can work together like that, you can outperform pretty much anybody. And I think that's another thing that we do at the New Zealand College, at the Research Centre, and at the school itself. And we have fantastic conversations where the head of technique and the head of philosophy and I sit down with them, and we have these conversations around care planning and frequency of care and duration of care and what should warrant an increase in adjustments frequency or a decrease. It's just beautiful. Again, you're taking everyone, and even the patient advocacy should come into that as well. So, but that would be my main message.
Well, I think these are very important for the way that we run the program, is because your story is like the foundation, and then the advice is something really important. But I know we have, once again, I know we have some things we're going to talk about, but who are your mentors? Like who helped you become like Heidi, the researcher?
I've got a couple of mentors. The main one is Professor Bernadette Murphy. She is the most amazing, intelligent woman, alongside my mother that I know. And Bernie, so she's a woman. She was a mother. We happened to live on the same street. I used to nanny her kids. And then I had my own. But being able to talk about, she had a PhD, so I was literally, my only dream of doing research was to help Bernie. Like, that was my ambition, was I was going to get my PhD, and I was going to volunteer my time 1 or 2 days a week to just be her research assistant so she could do the amazing work she was doing. But the problem is she up and left the country. And so then I had to give up on the research or take the job as the research director at the New Zealand College before I'd even finished my PhD. So, but just being able to connect with her, for me, as a woman, a mother, a researcher, scientist, I was so blessed, so blessed.
Well, I think it's also very important for us all to acknowledge the people that helped us become who we are. And, Can
I mention one more too there, James?
Of course.
Another person that inspired me an awful lot, and I haven't usually been able to talk about him because he passed, Guy Rickman as well, but Jerry Clum meant an awful lot to me. The reason I admired Jerry so much was I'd never seen anyone be able to walk the line between the different fractions in the profession. It didn't take me too long to figure out all these different political fractions. And Jerry was such a diplomat, or just diplomatic. He was just so eloquent and kind and caring and respectful to everybody. And that was another thing that really admired me and has driven me a lot in my work, that the science we're doing, it's not for one, political group of the profession. It's really for the patients. It's for the whole profession, and for the patients that don't have access to us because we're not understood. I mean, sadly, the chiropractors don't even understand themselves, but that's a whole nother problem. But so with, Bernie's, extreme intelligence, and again, just so honest with her work and her thoughts and her time, generous with her time. And then Jerry's, role model across the profession, I was like, yeah. And I think they've both had a huge impact on how I've ended up a bit of a spokesperson for the chiropractic neurophysiology, or the neuroscience of the spine-brain connection.
Well, I think what you've done is as a famous U.S. president would say, tore down the wall. I think you've torn down the wall of separation, and you're bringing and you're bringing everyone under the big top, like BJ would do at a Lyceum. And whatever your technique is, whatever your dogmatic approach to politics are, we can all stand behind one thing, that chiropractic makes people's lives better. And now you're proving that. And
you're proving how.
Yeah. So but my first talking point was pain to brain. And you go, well, I'm starting back at pain again. So let's talk about that topic. Well,
it's the interesting thing about, my journey. It's been 25 years now. So I've, I hopefully don't look that, but, it has actually been 25 years. I graduated in 99 and I started postgraduate studies immediately. So I've been in this world of neuroscience as well as practice for 25 years. And the understanding of how the brain works has changed so much, but so too has our understanding of pain. So, when I graduated from chiropractic college, we were still thinking that there were nociceptors somewhere that signal to the brain and that made you feel pain. And that was the belief. So, there were, I remember when there was looking for the nociceptors, where are they in the discs and where are they in the joints and are they in the facet joints? Because that's how they saw pain. And I know for many chiropractors, that was not really a very comfortable conversation because it didn't always necessarily fit with where they were subluxated. But that's because our understanding of pain was not complete. And so as I've gone on this journey and discovered, so much about the subluxation and its effects on the brain and body control and awareness, and the same of the adjustments and how that improves awareness of the body, the environment, and the spine, and can improve whole body awareness, function, resilience, all the rest of it. And there's also been so much changes in our understanding of how the brain functions and what pain is. And why I've now come full circle back to pain again, and I find it so fascinating, is that it's almost, it's more about the brain than anyone had ever realized. So pain is not a nociceptive, there's some tissue damage, let's make you feel the tissue damage. You can still feel pain and those tissues have healed, because the pain can become embodied inside your brain's theory or story or narrative about who you are, what's going on for you inside you and around you. And I can actually explain that now. So if we had, shitloads of time, I could go into the mechanisms, and this isn't my work. This is the neuroscientist work. So it actually fits beautifully with all we're learning about the subluxation and the effects of the adjustment and why we help so many people with pain, but you don't have to adjust them where they hurt. What seems to be the most important thing is that you adjust them where their subluxations are. And this is it's coming full circle back to what the clinicians have always known, you see. But when you're in the early days of research, sometimes the findings don't necessarily mirror what you see in practice. That doesn't make either of them wrong. Well, actually, turns out some of the studies were done wrong. So the clinicians were right all along. But I think this is where some of the original fighting started out. But yeah, so it's been so interesting, the whole journey on understanding the brain and the gut connection with the brain and glial cells. I mean, it's a complete difference now, 25 years, ago. So if you haven't looked at any of this for many, many years, you wouldn't be up to date, and you might still find that pain's a complicated thing. Of course, it is a complicated thing, but it's not a nociceptor turns the brain on. It's like, no. Even a subluxation. Can I tell you one quick story that fascinates me in this topic? This study by this lady, Candace McCabe, she had this, she hid the arms and got people, they were all healthy asymptomatic people, got them to move their right arm, but it's all hidden under a screen, and they had mirrors. So when they were moving their right arm, their eyes, through the mirror, it looked like it was their left arm moving. So their eyes are telling their brain, my left arm's moving, but their body is telling their brain, my right arm is moving. So incongruent sensory information coming in. And that caused, in up to 66% of completely healthy asymptomatic people, 66% of them ended up with symptoms from that little exercise. So it shows you that if your brain isn't aware, and of course, that's to me what a subluxation is. It's just the brain not fully aware of what's going on and somewhere in the core of the body. It's actually far more important to the brain's awareness than we might think. So 66% of completely asymptomatic people can feel symptoms from incongruent information, and a subluxation can cause incongruent information. Well, there alone is 66% of why some people could be experiencing symptoms without any injuries or accidents or tissue damage or injuries. So it's a fascinating mix, and again makes the subluxation such an important part of it. And I know that's another thing you wanted us to talk about, right?
Yeah, and you shared so much there, and I have to go back to my original frameworks of how I was taught to communicate chiropractic, and I want to see if that's still a relevant conversation, because I was talking about this to someone today that didn't know much about chiropractic, and I said, well, when you understand that there's thoughts, traumas, and toxins that cause subluxation in the body, you want to get checked by a chiropractor to see how your spine is controlling your behaviors with your mood, your behaviors with your pain cycle, if you have pain, and your behaviors with your motivations and things. And I said, sometimes the thoughts that we have, like you're talking about the arm, sometimes the thought that we have gives us the greatest subluxation, and it has a direct impact on our nervous system and our ability to thrive. So would you say that the 3 T's is still a relevant conversation?
Yes, and I want to come back to something else too. So can I come back to the 3 T's, because I want to follow something there. What you just raised there now about what our beliefs are actually more important than anything else. And this is one of the big changes in our understanding of how the brain functions. If your brain was constantly genuinely paying attention to all the sensory information coming in from outside your body and all the information coming from inside your body, you couldn't do anything else. You wouldn't have enough energy. So the way the brain manages this is that it creates its own story. And this is, it's called the default mode network in one way you could view it. Doesn't really matter about the words. But this inner world or inner reality, if you embody something into that, that's your brain's beliefs that you're stuck with, not reality. And this is where it's so cool, because what we're finding in the adjusting research, I know I'm jumping around a little bit here, but when we're adjusting people, it seems to wake the brain up, and the brain suddenly genuinely pays attention, often why people get so tired after adjustments too, which now makes a lot more sense. And it genuinely recalibrates. It goes, oh shit, I don't need to be doing that anymore. And, oh, I've got to correct that. And I've got a bit of an error thing going on here. And oh, this was wrong. And so it resets. And this could come out in your mood, in your sleep, in your organ function, in your bladder control, as well as neck pain, back pain, headaches, any kind of aches and pains. We even know that the spine is far more important for how your brain controls arms and legs, and it's a bit like a duh, because your arms and legs, they're kind of attached to your spine, right? So your brain cannot control movement of arms and legs if it doesn't know what's going on at the attachment sites, which is the spine. So there's that one. And then I'll jump back to your trauma, toxins, and thoughts. We wrote a review in 2021, so a research review on what the effects of subluxation and the adjustment on the brain, basically, or the brain's control of movement. So arms, legs, spine, whatever. So we were looking at the effects of the spine dysfunctioning or the improving spinal function, so subluxation or the adjustments, on the brain's ability to accurately control movement. An important part of being able to accurately control movement is to accurately sense what's going on to begin with. But anyway, so back to that. So I was reading and writing about it. And of course, there's a lot of really cool research showing that physical trauma, and this is a lot of Paul Hodges' work, awesome neurophysiologist, spinal physiologist. And anyway, he's shown that if you physically injure the spine, all this stuff happens to these little muscles, the small, deep muscles close to the spine that cross individual vertebra. They tend to, over time, after a physical injury, they shrink, they become fatty infiltrated, they change their fiber type. Even their ability to respond to movement is blunted. So there's all these incredibly exciting research looking at that. That's sort of the effects of a subluxation from trauma. But then there's a whole lot more work that we came across that shows that if you actually go into fight and flight, so you actually, emotional stress or spiritual stress or something pushes you into fight and flight. This is based on Lorimer Moseley and David Burke's stuff, and you can read about that. He's got a good book called Explain Pain. I think on page 90, they talk about if you have suddenly confronted with a saber-toothed tiger and you go into emotional, fight and flight mode, so you've gone into full-blown shock mode, you don't really need those little muscles. They go to sleep so that all your energy goes to your arms and legs to fight or run away. So there's your trauma, there's your thoughts. And then we found evidence that local inflammation, which again is your toxins, local inflammation also switches off these little muscles. So even from our research model, this new brain model of the subluxation and effects of the adjustment or of chiropractic care, with this importance of these little muscles being able to communicate with the brain, we still come back to what can cause subluxations as trauma, toxins, and thoughts. I mean, you just got to laugh, eh? I mean, isn't that beautiful? Like these forefathers of chiropractic, they were geniuses, really, for their time. They were so ahead of their time. It's ridiculous.
Well, I think, you're talking my language, and it's really inspiring to me to hear you talk about how it all correlates. And that's really the method of communication right now is people, they don't want more information. They want information that they can go to and it actually helps change their life. And
you need to be able to trust it. You need to be able to know that it's trustworthy, it's congruent with the current science. I think that's very, very important, because we know now with ChatGPT and all of this, there's shit tons of information out there, but some of it's just absolute rubbish. So knowing, that what we know is actually congruent with the latest scientific evidence, I think is so important for us and for people out there too.
Well, the part where, Heidi, where other people don't really key in on is any other research outside of chiropractic research is paid for by groups that you might not be impressed by. So they're going to create research based on who's funding it. And that's where I want to just jump in. And I want to let people know that they can help you fund chiropractic research. And if they don't believe in the research that they're seeing come out from monopoly research foundations, they can, jump in and help donate money to the New Zealand Research Center and help with chiropractic research. So that's fundamental to the truth. Like, if chiropractic wants truth out there about this beautiful profession, which we're talking about right now, then we got to rally the troops and say, hey, come support this message.
And it doesn't need to be a lot. But if it was like a small monthly amount that you're not even going to miss, but it's going to the New Zealand College of Chiropractic's Research Centre, that would be a huge thing for us. Like, we were talking about it again before we went live, which is why we were a bit late, because we got carried away. But like the Research Centre in New Zealand now, I've got over 35 people just working in the Research Centre, but half of their time is taken up on writing grants to try and raise money. Like, can you imagine? We've got unbelievable experts as part of the team, and like, even just the small amount of money, if we know we've got it coming in on a monthly basis, we can allocate some of these PhD geniuses to just doing chiropractic stream research instead of having to waste half a year with writing grants. Like, it's just unreal what we could do. So if you like what's coming out of the New Zealand College at the moment, whether you're aware of it maybe or not, if you're not aware of it, please check it out, because it's unreal what we're actually coming out with now. Like, even this upcoming talk that you mentioned next week, I do these masterclasses a couple of times a year. I've got several of them pre-recorded. Obviously they've been live, but we've got one live coming up on Tuesday, US time next week, where we're looking at some of the latest randomized controlled trials, literally showing that connection between chiropractic care, the central nervous system, and the immune system. And this is one of the first prospective randomized controlled trials looking at immune function. So immune markers, so not necessarily immune function, so, and there's a distinction, but I'll go into that. So if you want to check out what we're doing, just go to the New Zealand College of Chiropractic and look at the Research Centre. If you know about our work and you're not yet actually putting some money in towards it, even if it was just a coffee a month, please, just something. Because, I have so many people. The only thing we're lacking, we've got all this beautiful equipment. The only thing I'm lacking is funding.
Funding, yeah. So I tell people all this time, you can either give to this world with your time, your talent, or your treasure. Yeah. And if you don't have the time and you don't have the talent, give your treasure. And I think that that's a cornerstone for the outcome of today's episode is support the research, because it supports the future of chiropractic.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Peach State Payments. Ethical processing, more profit, less stress. Chiro HD, more than an EHR. Practice management simplified. The Chiro Speaking Company. Attract, educate, and convert. Chiro Spring, cloud-based, user-friendly software with all the essential features chiropractors need. Redmond Relight. The IFCO, Chiro Moguls, Chiro Health USA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, and Life West College of Chiropractic. Let's hustle. Hey docs, let me ask you something. Are you adjusting patients but not adjusting your revenue? Because a lot of chiropractors are still undercharging without even realizing it. They're accepting insurance allowances that are just too low, and they're hesitant to raise the fees because they're worried about pushback from patients. The problem is, when your fees and financial systems aren't aligned, it creates a slow leak in your practice. And when you try to grow more marketing, more patients, maybe even another location, the leak gets bigger. There's actually a smarter way to handle this. Chiro Health USA helps chiropractors charge appropriately when insurance is available while still serving cash or limited benefit patients through a compliant discount medical plan. The results? Many practices see revenue increases around 15 to 20% without adding more visits. Same patients, better margins, more freedom. If you want to stop leaving money on the table and build a practice that's both profitable and compliant, check out chirohealthusa.com to learn more.
There's some really cool projects we want to do, James, like little things like, I don't know about you, but have you been to different chiropractors and have you noticed that some are a little bit different than others? And I suspect that might have something to do. No, I know. It might have something to do with our intent, where our heart's at, where how present we are with our patient. And there's this ability that we can now do, because we've actually got several whole head EEG systems. It's called hyperscanning, where you can actually record the EEG from the chiropractor and EEG from the patient at the same time. Wow. And they've done studies with mums and newborn babies. And if mummy plays with her newborn baby, baby's brain synchronizes with mum. And so this has been talked about in chiropractic forever, right? That your intent matters, that you think about your patient and the Ferrari will take care of itself. Not that I've ever made the Ferrari, but, put it too much back into research. But I'm so convinced that some of the magic juice, the X factor in chiropractic, is not just adjusting subluxations. It's that connectivity. It's that giving a shit, being present with your patient and tuning into them. And I think we'll be able to measure that through these and again, it's one of those projects that I have no money for. So I'm like squeezing my team in amongst all the grant writing, but if I had some source of income more from the profession, these are the kinds of projects that we could do that, I'm never going to get a grant for that,
Well, Heidi, it's old school philosophy. Give for the sake of giving, love for the sake of loving, serve for the sake of serving, out of the abundance of your heart and your soul and in your hands, expecting nothing in return. So when you think about the work of Sid Williams, he would support this. And I know earlier, I don't think we got a chance to acknowledge Guy Reekman. And I know
both Jerry and Guy, supporting this big time. Yeah.
And, I think that just understanding the legacy of supporting chiropractic for the right reasons, it can show that the philosophy is alive and well. And we talk a game. Now we need to play the game. And I think that's a big part of Yeah. And, me being a, podcast producer, marketer guy, you being a research chiropractor, world traveler, stage speaker, there is a purpose behind us not stopping, because we believe that the more that we do together, we can help more people. And the world needs chiropractic. And I know it was really popular, some phraseology that came out about 6 years ago, now more than ever. But we do need now more than ever to be for the right cause and the right purpose. And I know you're banging the drum a lot. But it reminded me earlier when you're talking about some things, when it came to the research and the development and, show the work type thing, show the math. It reminds me of heart math, what you were talking about with how the brain body connection talks to the people and it talks to the baby with the mom. And also earlier you were talking about, the correlations between the subluxation and the thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And it takes me to Bruce Lipton's work, where he talks about the epigenetics of people and how what they grow up in their environment is how they grow up is who they become.
And it's their thoughts, it's their beliefs.
Yeah.
it's the cassette tape. Yeah. But the adjustments can get straight through. I've even done an awesome video recording with Bruce. I've got it on my YouTube channel. It's a tiny little thing. I keep trying to do a YouTube channel, but I never really get there. But I have got a few videos on there. One of them is with Bruce. And can you believe it? We've just recently even done a gene, what's it called? Transcriptomics. It's like which genes get turned on and which genes get turned off after a period of chiropractic care or control. And it's We literally, like a week ago, got sent through the preliminary results, and they're unbelievable. So again, I'm going to touch a little bit on this next week in the masterclass on the chiro-neuroimmune connection, because it's showing things like it's improving our oxygen consumption and our antioxidant effect, which goes along with the latest changes we found in the brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And the thing is, I couldn't make this shit up, James. I'm not that smart. Like these are all these extra scientists that are working on the team. I feel like I'm the one that's just trying to catch up. Each year at the end of the year these days, I have to actually do a little Google search on my own name, and I find extra publications that I hadn't even realized had gotten published. Like it's happening so fast, and this is with nearly no funding. Can you imagine what we could do if we suddenly had, more funding? Like this would just be exploding. And that is going to be, the volume of it is going to be what matters most. Like I'm also trying my ass off to build up other research centers. I've been working with Australia and Scotland and in Barcelona. And, because it's so important that there's more research units around the world, and Life and Stephanie Sullivan and Tyson, fantastic research going on there as well. But these centers they all need boosting, because there's got to be, you can't just have one center finding shit. It's got to be reproduced elsewhere in the world too. Although we're doing so many collaborations, it's insane. And that's the other cool thing. We've got some of these, I'm not an expert in gene transcriptomics. Are you kidding me? I'm sitting there, I don't even know half the friggin' names. I'm looking them up, Google searching them, going, what the fuck's this? And so it takes me months of work to get my head around what we're actually discovering. Then I know more about it, which is what worked with these brain networks. Again, when we first found that, it was almost like an accidental finding in a stroke victim population. Because we ended up doing that by accident because we were working with this guy Kamal Turker, and we found these strong increases in strength. It's not that we're making their muscles stronger, but we're making their brains more efficiently able to produce force. And we've done that in normal chiro students and elite athletes. So Kamal turns to us and goes, this is Kamal Turker, world-renowned neurophysiologist, nothing to do with chiropractic other than working with us. And he goes, well, if you can do this with, normal college students and elite athletes, we should look at the other end of the spectrum, at people that have lost their cortical ability to contract their muscles. And I'm going, you're talking about a stroke population? And he goes, yeah. So I was like, okay, let's do that then. It's just following the data and following, well, if this is the case, that should be the case. And then it's doing that. And that's why it's 25 years of this. But I still think a lot of the profession aren't even up to date with this science. They don't know it. They don't own it. And I think that's a big travesty, because it's got some real big implications too on how we explain chiropractic and, not necessarily the technique, but in how we conceptualize what's going on and how we communicate it.
Do you know why they don't? Because they don't know how to get access to it. And that's why we're doing shows like this, because it wakes people up and it gives them the idea that now they have access to something that they didn't know how important it was to their career and to the profession. And that's why I say share this show with students, because they are the future. And I do believe that we've missed the mark big time for the past 2 decades of getting the students up to speed on why they should support their own profession and why they should be parts of their associations, and why they should show up to meetings, and why they should become politically involved. And really, I think we have to go make up for lost time right now. But
we do, and I hear you on that. And that's one of the reasons that I literally built those 3 resource libraries, or 2 resource libraries. One is a whole Chiros Academy, which has got full of the latest about neuroscience and the latest about, science in general, and the chiropractic science and the clinical science and the mechanisms of, what is a subluxation and what's the effects of the adjustments. And so that's why I built that entire library. And then I realized I'm a bit slow sometimes. You see, I realize that some people actually want to learn from me. Even though I pre-recorded those classes, they actually want to communicate with me. So I've built the Platinum membership now, and I'm having so much fun working with these chiropractors that are genuinely interested in understanding this science and having these live interactive sessions. It's just been an absolute ball. And I've also realized that a lot of chiropractors just don't want to do anything. They want the easy route. And so for them now, we've built this, you can get a friggin' QR code and you don't have to learn anything, but at least your patients get access to this information in lay language. And that's all the Chiros Hub membership stuff, where they get access to the classes as well. But so it's been a really interesting journey, James, just to see the breadth of, and again, like this is, we work with schools, like so the New Zealand College obviously get all of access to all of this science, and so too does Scotland, the Scotland College. Worked with Barcelona for a few years. There's we donate some classes to Palmer College, so it's slowly getting out there. Because think about it, there's not many chiropractic neuroscientists on the planet. There's not many chiropractic scientists on the planet, let alone chiropractic neuroscientists. So who the hell's going to teach this? Unless hence it's pre-recorded, hence it's on a resource library, and you can go through it. I also speak very fast and tend to swear a little bit. So, it's a little bit slower in the classes, and you can sort of listen to it and every 5 minutes test yourself. And like, it's all built properly for adult education too,
Well, if you'll realize anything about me, Heidi, is I love fundamentals. And I like to go back to like the bedrock of conversation. And if people knew what we know, they'd do what we do.
I know.
And it's really an awareness campaign that we really have to bang the drum on is if people knew what you know, they would do what you do, and they would become members of your groups, and they would share the information and they would learn. But I also love the idea of present time consciousness. That's why some people don't want to go to a learning library, and they want to be with you live on calls, or they want to have access to you in real time, is because it is sometimes easier to be with somebody like this interview and get that human experience of, I have access to this person that is giving me their time to explain to me what might be on my mind, and it might organize some things for that person in real time. But there are other people that really, if you told them to go Netflix binge your content, and they would go do that. Some people learn better through that application. So I think it's
mix of both is actually quite a beautiful little interplay. And like, I tell you what, the feedback I've had that's meant the most to me is from chiropractors who've worked through some of my platinum memberships. So this is where I set them tasks and assignments, and we work through together this outline. The best feedback I've had from some of these chiropractors is they are getting adjusted more regularly themselves. And it goes back to this, the thing we were talking about students, like, you've got to take care of you. Like, if you're going to be a healer, a chiropractor, if you're going to, you can't be absolutely burnt out and shit. So if you don't, and so to know that if they just see the science, they as chiropractors are choosing to change their own behavior and get checked more often. I just couldn't be happier. Because to me, again, what are their communications going to be now with their patients? It's going to be a completely different story. I get, and I do, James, get checked every week, sometimes twice a week. And I can never reduce it because I'm always stressed out. So I've just decided that that's just best for me. And I pay for my care because I want to honor the chiropractor's time in that. I know many chiropractors swap, but I don't have time to take care of anyone else. I pay for my husband's care, actually he started to pay for his own now. And I pay for my children and my staff at Horvick Research, not the research center we get done through the college. And again, they introduce them to it. We talk about the philosophy of it. We share the scientific evidence, and it's obviously their choice, always their choice. But it just meant so much to me to see chiropractors actually looking after themselves when they saw the science, because that's what I've done.
I called that project Heal the Healer.
Yeah.
And, it is what you said earlier. It's congruent, and it's a message. And if you take care of yourself, you can more easily take care of other people. And I just want to turn back the page a couple things that you touched on. And I know that we're almost at the edge of our time together, but you talked about when people get adjusted, they actually feel like they need a nap. And
have you noticed that?
Well, I think one of the things about this is it's not very regular for somebody to actually invest in taking care of themselves.
No, it's not. Even that needs to be shifted. Yeah.
So when somebody gets somebody to take care of them, it breaks down the barriers of, I have to carry this load myself.
Yeah.
And that gives a chance for somebody to actually feel like somebody gives a shit about them. And that's missing in our culture. And that's why I fell in love with chiropractic the way I did, because what I saw it do was give people their purpose back. Yeah. And it gives them their enthusiasm for life back. And it's a lot cooler when the dad's not drinking all the time because he feels like shit and brings it home and puts it on to the kids and the mom. And it's really cool when that guy gets adjusted and his behavior shifts, and that's real talk. And it's really cool in a baby that's crying bloody murder because it's colicky, and it gets adjusted. The baby gets adjusted and comes home, and the family actually gets a chance to have quality of life again because the baby sleeps, and the family goes back to a not stressful moment. And that's really what I fell in love with it for. And I started doing these patient testimonials where I'd travel around the country and I'd interview patients, and I'd ask them what their life was like previous to chiropractic. I'd ask them what their life was like now. And I'd ask them if they would recommend chiropractic to their friends and family. I'd ask them 3 things, and I'd make these commercials. And people would tell me stories about playing with their kids. They'd tell me stories about not having headaches and locking themselves into rooms because they have panic attacks, because they have migraines. And they would tell me stories about how they beat addiction. And they would tell me stories about how they got reconnected to their purposes and their families got better and their work environment got better. And what you're saying is so full circle from my 17 years of working in this profession, your 25 years working into the profession. The research also has to have advocacy behind it. And we have to share the story.
Explains those stories now.
Yes.
It's the first time in our entire history, James, that we can genuinely explain those stories, all of those stories from the research. So it's now like we have finally got a biologically plausible, scientifically congruent mechanisms for why our chiropractic care can have such an amazing impact on people's lives. It is mind-boggling. And it's so beautiful, especially because it's so close to the original theories, And, even Einstein and Newton got a few things wrong too, Doesn't make them idiots.
Well, another thing that I tell people about chiropractic, and you might be able to stand up on this or push back on this, but I tell people the reason they call it an organ system is because it's organized, and the nerves that come through it keep the organ system organized to where it's functioning the way it's supposed to. And that just happens to be something that's at the top of our head, which is our brain. And if your head's on straight, your brain thinks better, your body functions better, and the downstream effect is everything that we're talking about full circle. The research supports it.
Spot on.
The history of the profession supports it, from the green book to the blue book to the white book. To Rob Sinnott's work.
The only tweak, James, is that it's not the squash nerve root. That's the only tweak. It's not the squash nerve root that matters. It's not the little nerve roots that exit. It's the little muscles around the spine no longer speaking to the brain. But the safety pin cycle, everything else is, if the brain knows what's going on, and it's just not that we used to think it was the squash nerve. It's the only tweak, really. And then, of course, now we understand so much more about the brain that explains all those other things and those other aspects of life. It's particularly the parts of the brain, which is just, again, mind-boggling.
It's the tension of the muscle on the nerve that puts it under tension. No?
No. So this is the one thing that we get wrong. You see, we used to think that the nerve roots were getting squashed. It's actually not. You can't actually do that unless you've got like a disc herniation. So we know that. You've seen people that are in agony down their arm or down their leg.
Mm-hmm.
So they've done animal studies where they've literally looked at how much pressure they've opened them up, anesthetized, obviously, opened them up to see how much pressure on the nerve root is necessary to interfere with communication across that nerve root. And you need to put more pressure on that nerve root than is to interfere with communication across there. You've got to put more pressure on it than what's causing the neuropathy type symptoms. So the disc herniation patient or the spinal stenosis type patient, there's so much pressure you've got to put on it. So, and if you think about it, most people are subluxated, don't come in with radiating arm or leg pain. But so what we know, and this is the trick of it now, is what we've now understood, what was more important all along was the communication to the brain, but from these little muscles. So it's the little muscles that cross these vertebrae. Their communication is actually what matters. That's how the brain knows what's going on at that level. And not just at that level, because that level represents part of the core of you, it influences how you experience what's going on inside you, how you experience what's going on around you. So if you have a low back subluxation, that could interfere with your ability to move your arm. Whereas before they used to think, oh, it's got to be the neck because that innervates the arm. No. And this is the whole thing about the new brain model, is that's the only real tweak. And it's a bit tricky for many, especially old school chiropractors really struggle with this because they've used that story for so long. They still think it's a squash nerve. It's not a squash nerve root. It's this communication between the body from the little muscles to the brain and how important that is. Like, for example, we've shown changes in the way that the brain interprets sound and visual information. Right? You think about that. I mean, there's no nerve root that goes through the spine to your ears or eyes. But what's happening is how the brain is interpreting what you're seeing and hearing. If your brain doesn't know where you are accurately, which is probably what the core of the spine is, it can't accurately interpret sound and visual information because it's a key part of how it interprets what's going on. Same with arms and legs. If your brain doesn't know where they attach, what's going on there, they can't control the movement of the arms and legs right. So it's this understanding how important the brain signals from the small paraspinal tissues, why they're so important for the brain to interpret what's happening inside your body. And this is the same thing with organs. You don't have to have a subluxation at T4 for it to affect your heart. You could have a sacroiliac subluxation that's affecting your heart function because it's interfering with the brain's awareness of what's going on and controlling things. Or why upper cervical? Remember, upper cervical alone was like a real popular thing? Same thing. Just the upper cervical is so dense with these stretch receptors that it blasts the brain. Oh, another thing I want to come back to, but I see you eager on saying something there. I want to come back to the, I've forgotten now, I got all excited. It'll come back to me or not.
Well, what you're saying is old school philosophy that we are the sum of the total of our parts.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter where the subluxation is. It has a upstream or downstream effect on the physiology of our biomechanics and of our performance and on the organ system function. And I think there's so much that goes into what we're talking about here. I know we're up on the edge of our time together today. I did want to give you, I did want to give you the opportunity to share anything else that you wanted to before we call it a night or midday for you.
Because we've only just touched on this right towards the end. If there's anyone out there that are sitting there thinking, well, I'd actually like to know a little bit more about the brain model and what you're talking about. I have actually got quite a few masterclasses on the same link with the masterclass link. I think it's just HeidiHorvick.com/masterclasses, or even just go to HeidiHorvick.com and then click on the masterclasses. There's the one coming up, but there are others there where I've gone in a bit more detail for a couple of hours on this brain model, on the latest understanding of the subluxation interfering with brain function. I've even done a whole 2-hour session on why we could impact organ function, not via the nerve roots, but via the subluxation impacting the brain regions that are responsible for sensing what's going on in the organs and controlling the organ function. So I go into all of this in these. That's the easiest way to get a little bit more information. And then if you're excited about it and you want to share it, then I'd recommend the Kairos Hub to be able to own your own science. You could do it at different levels, or at least get it out to your patients through the bronze, the QR code, the easy version. And if you want to join me, then, that's the other platinum membership, or there's somewhere in the middle where you can look at it all at your own time. And then the final thing is, if you find this research useful for you, for your patients, for the community, for the world, then please freaking donate to the New Zealand College of Chiropractic's Research Centre, because we could use every single penny to do a truckload more research, which would be really, really cool.
Heidi, really nice having you on today. There's probably 10 more things I want to talk to you about, so we'll have to get part 2 going.
We will.
And the next one, we're going to talk about how the brain is impacted by the adjustment in real time. So that's the cliffhanger for people. Love and appreciate you guys. Like I always close out, I tell everybody, you guys are just one story away. Keep hustling. Love and appreciate you, Heidi. Thank you for making time, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.